right, welcome back to our channel. So, the birth of our first son. So maybe we should start by, diving in a little bit deeper into that whole journey. What did maybe falling pregnant look like, or deciding that it was the right time to have kids? Because in the last episode you mentioned that I had wanted kids since forever, which is so true. And we had been together a long time. For those of you that don't know, we've been together since we were like 16. So that's going on, it's going to be 16 years at the end of this year. And we didn't have our first baby until I was 27, which is quite a long time. What did it look like when we decided to conceive that child? Because obviously I was always keen. So what changed for you on why you were like...
Well, there was I touched a little bit on the last one, but there was actually two main things that like sealed the deal for me, or actually three actually. The first one was I got a past life regression from someone who does like the Dolores Cannon past life regression stuff. So if you haven't heard of Dolores Cannon, search her up, because she's a rabbit hole in herself and her mihi that she does. But yeah, I got a past life thing, and I'm not going to go full into that story because it's long as, but in there was a fear around having kids because my eldest son died pretty much for me, and I was scared for having kids because I didn't want to lose them again. So that was one. Number two was we did a retreat. Was it a retreat or Freedom Keeper retreat or something like that? We did a retreat at our friend Tay and Frank's. Shout out to them because they're absolutely amazing people and love everything that they do, and whatever they do, I'll back them 1,000% just because of the people they are and what they stand on.
And they're also one of the very few people I know, possibly even the only people I know, whose relationship is actually as fucking solid as they say it is online, you know?
Yeah, it's not just a show.
Yeah.
But either way, we went there for a retreat and we did like this breathwork session with Frank, and it was all the men. And we come to an end and everyone was like kind of talking about their experience. And the thing that hit for me was that I was the only male in this room that didn't have kids. And I like definitely like felt some type of way because I was just surrounded by all of these other males, and they were just like, I don't know, like they were fathers and they were so proud to be fathers, and almost everything that they were doing was because of their kids, you know. And I seen like the love in their eyes for their kids, you know, and I was like, I felt a little bit envious, you know. I was like, wow, like that's really special, like. And so that was like a big thing for me anyway, where I was like, man, maybe I should just have kids, you know, like. But here I am thinking like all of these real world problems, you know, like I don't have this, I don't have this, I don't have that, I haven't fucking done this, you know, like, when really there isn't never going to be a perfect time.
Yeah.
So that was a big driving force. And then like I said in that, I touched on in the last episode, was I had people close to me who couldn't have kids. And then that was like, for me, that was quite upsetting, you know, like that people I love who really wanted to have children were struggling to have children, and they had to do all of these things to be able to conceive a child, you know. So for me, I was like, well, I'm young, I'm healthy, and I'm only getting older, so why don't I just try, you know? If I get pregnant, or if Steve gets pregnant, then it's meant to be, and if not, then shit, we got some work to do, or I got to find out what the fuck's wrong with me or her or whatever, you know? So just put my faith into spirit, into God, or whatever you want to believe in, rolled the dice a little bit, and stopped not trying to have kids.
Yeah. And I remember before this, I would hassle you all the time, like, when are we going to have kids? When are we going to have kids? And I remember it was my birthday, 2022, it must have been, or 2021.
It must have been 22, I think, because he was born 23, I think.
No, he was born 22,
oh,
so it must have been 21.
I don't know.
I can't remember. One of the birthdays of that year, anyway, I was like wishing like, okay, this year's going to be the year, like we're going to have a baby this year. And then I just remember... that time at the retreat, you came and told me, because we were in our van still, and you were like, oh, this is what's kind of come through for me. And I remember being like, oh my God, you have never said that before. And so I knew, like, oh my God. And like my Freedom Keeper girls, man, love them so much. And I just feel like they held me through, I feel like, my maiden years hard out. And for those of you that don't know, Freedom Keepers is like a movement that we started. It actually originated in America, but my friend Tay founded the Australian and New Zealand chapter, and and basically we went around informing people around the dangers of vaccinations. And it started off as childhood vaccinations, but then COVID happened and we really created a huge support network, like massive waves of impact were created during that time of COVID, where we helped people to get out of these mandated vaccines or, you know, support them through that time. So
Or at least question the narrative.
definitely. And so, yeah, it started off as childhood vaccines, and I was a huge advocate for this, but I didn't have my own kids yet. And so, yeah, these women really held me through those times of me desiring to have a kid so much, but also having my own fears. And yeah, in turn ended up holding us both through that. So always forever grateful for that time in our lives and super proud of the work that we did with them. But yeah, I just remember telling them and being so happy. And then we got home, and were we living with Logan at the time? Maybe not yet. But I remember just telling my friend, like, yeah, we're going to start like not trying for a baby. And then basically that next month it happened.
Yeah, and there was a whole, like, yeah, like I'd kind of just, put my faith into whatever, and was just like, if we get pregnant, we'll sort it out. If not, then we'll sort that out.
Yeah.
But I remember I was driving home from work, because at this point I was doing this restoration mihi, and I had like this big fucking yellow van, which was like our work vans. And I remember driving home from work that night, and it was dark, or like getting dark, like it was almost pitch black. And I remember driving, and just as I was coming up to like the Southport exit on the M1, I get swooped by this black cockatoo, you know, and it almost like smoked my van windshield, and I was like, what the fuck, like. And first of all, you don't see black cockatoos very often at all, but then you definitely don't see them on the motorway, and then you never really hear of them sweeping people. So I was kind of like, shit.
They're usually high in the sky.
That must be a bit of a tohu, you know. And in our time when we were van lifing, we spent a lot of time with Indigenous, and the black cockatoo was a very like special bird to them, you know. It was like a totem for them, you know, or something that they really admired, because it was so rare, and it was just an amazing creature that is this massive black bird that just like.
But it doesn't squawk like the white cockatoo
and
either.
It's quite a mesmerizing bird. Like it's got like it's certain like energy about it, and you're like, wow. Like every time you see them, you know, sometimes they're by themselves, sometimes they're like a couple of them, and then other times there's like flocks of hundreds of them, you know, like. So it was very rare to see a black cockatoo on the M1 and swooping my van, you know. And I was kind of like, oh, that must be a tohu, you know, like bro showing me a sign for something. And then anyway, 5 minutes later I get home, and I walk in the back door, and Steve and her mate sitting there, and I was like, oh, hey, you know, like I'm home. And Steve was like, oh, I've got something to tell you. And I was like, oh, what's up? And she was like, I'm pregnant. And I was just like, fuck, that was that bird. Like, I knew like straight away, like, I was quite excited, to be honest. It
was so weird though, because I was like, are you excited? And you're like, no, yeah, I'm happy.
Yeah. I was like, well, yeah, I'm not the biggest to like show like excitement and things like that. It's kind of like, oh, yep, you know, like, just gotta process this for a bit. But no, I was actually like stoked, you know. Like my biggest thing was I was stoked that I was working properly, you know. Everything was working, I was healthy, and now we've got this baby on the way. And my first thought is like, yeah, real life shit, like, well, I need to sort my shit out, like I need to get a house. Like I was like, I'm living in a fucking van. Like I was like, all right, like that's our goal now, you know. It's like we need to get a house now. We've got 9 months to sort it out. And
but I remember you asking me as well, one of the first questions was like, oh, are we going to get scans and stuff? Because before falling pregnant, we had been learning so much about birth, and I feel like a lot of that was thanks to you, because when we first got together, not when we first got together, but when we first moved over here to Australia, I do remember I was working in corporate, and I had a friend there who had chosen to have a cesarean. And I remember every time I would think about birth or talk about birth with any of my friends, I would just get so tense and closed up. I just did not understand how a baby comes out of somebody like that. And I used to be so scared. And I remember, my friend in corporate was like, oh, well, I got a cesarean, and the doctor said to me that that's better for the baby. And I just thought, boom, done. You can do that here, because in New Zealand, you can't just do that. She was like, yeah, you can choose to have it. I was like, oh my God, my like birthing prayers are answered. And I went home to him and I was like, we can have a baby and I'm just going to have a cesarean. And he's like, no, you're fucking not. And I was like, what do you mean? And that's what he said. If you're having my kids, you have to at least try to give birth naturally. He's like, I've seen videos of these cesareans and it's fucked. He was like, the way that they cut you, he's like, nah, no way. Like, why would anyone choose to do that?
And in my eyes, I'm just thinking like, how unnatural is that? I'm thinking like, that's like wrong. Like, you were born as a woman, and a woman's like natural autonomy is made to give birth. Like, so it's just like, and she was like, I'm too small, I'm too this, I'm too that. And I was thinking like, you don't get made too small to not have kids. I'm like, there's so many smaller women who pushed out heaps of kids, you know.
Which, like, thank God for that.
And, like, I
thought
don't know,
of
like, I
yours.
always just have this thought in the back of my head is, like, my grandmother birthed, like, so many kids, like,
She
just
was
one after
way
the
bigger
other,
than me,
you
though.
know. Yeah, she was a lot bigger, you know, but still, it was very normal to just be popping out kids like they were nothing, you know.
Yeah.
Like, so I was like, nah, like, at bare minimum, you at least got to try your best,
Yeah,
like.
yeah. And thank you for saying that, because obviously that is when I was like, I really wanted kids. So it was like, okay, I have to figure this out. Like, I have to figure out how I'm going to try and birth these kids naturally, which was just so far away at the time from where I was. And then I started to, obviously just through divine intervention, I found this chick online, and she had free birthed her kids, and you were kind of following her husband for health reasons and stuff, and then we started finding other people alike who were what they call free birthing their kids, which was like birthing these kids with no midwives, no doctors, no nothing. And these were like people overseas, you know, like we didn't know anybody doing it here. But as soon as I had heard these stories and these women going down this path, I thought, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to birth without a midwife. And I remember saying to our friends who were already like 3 kids deep at this time, and they used to tell me, like, she used to tell me, like, you'll be fine, you can birth kids, like, you know, they'd birth 3, you know, and they were like, if we can do it, like, you can do it. And then I told her, like, nah, when I have a kid, I'm gonna birth without a midwife. And she was like, whoa, like, that was like crazy to her. And she'd had 3 kids, you know. So I just started researching from that stage. And this person who did that shared a lot of things that she had done to get her there. So I read the books that she recommended. I watched the programs that she recommended. I ended up putting myself into birth spaces. I went to like this Birth Without Fear workshop, which was from a chick from the UK who came over, and I met a lot of people there. One of them being my friend who ended up being our doula, Michelle. That's where I met her, was at this Birth Without Fear conference in Brisbane with a chick called January. I can't remember her last name, but yeah, she was the person at the time. I met her there. And, well, actually, no, I lie. I didn't meet Michelle there. I seen her there, and she stood out probably as much as I stood out, because she was like this old white lady with waka blonde hair, and she had tattoos everywhere. And I just thought, wow, I notice you, you know. There was this connection. We didn't even talk to each other, but there was this connection. I noticed her. I kept like seeing her throughout the room. I met some other really amazing people there as well who I connected with, and it was just a really informative time. And I remember that was the first time where I thought, like, fuck, I could really do this. So from there I went to the next workshop and the next workshop, and then I found Tay, my friend Tay, and she was doing different things, mostly around vaccinations at first, but then she started doing things around birth and, you know, really preparing the body for birth, and taking care of ourselves to give us the best chance at being able to have, you know, home birth or free birth, whichever way you want to go. And then, yeah, when we fell pregnant, I was like, oh, well, I have to have my friend Michelle, because by this stage I was really close with my friend Michelle, and she had birthed, I don't want to say she had birthed babies, because she doesn't birth a baby, sorry. She had supported a lot of my friends and people that I knew to birth their babies. And there were times where, you know, one of our friends had a baby prematurely, and she supported us in that, and my friends. And she just did a lot of work around informed consent, teaching women about the cascade of intervention, and, you know, how to kind of handle yourself in a hospital setting. And when we decided to go and have her as our doula, by that stage she had, because she went to switching to home births only. So at first she was a doula for anybody, any kind of a birth, but because there was this massive cascade of intervention and these women were being left traumatized after their births, she then switched to, okay, I'm only going to do home births. And then she only did home births for a little while. And then by the time we had met her in our birth space, she was only doing free births. So it just made perfect sense that I would go with her. So we were friends first, and we'd met each other multiple different times. We had a relationship already. So there was this massive sense of safety for me with her. But Kim also knew the work that she did and had met her as well and seen what she'd done. So there was this massive sense of safety with him as well. And I think that's a major key in our relationship that we were able to build with her, and the experience that we had with her was that there was this sense of safety with Michelle. And so called her, because I'd always told her that she was going to be my doula, and so contacted her immediately and organised that. Again, another investment, another cost that mainly this guy is like stressing about, but the best investment, right? Because really, what is the price of the experience that we were able to have? It's priceless, really. So we met with Michelle for the first time, and I remember it was our first Zoom, and we were in the garage of our friend's house, still living at our friend's house in the van at the time. And I was so excited, and we were kind of arguing a little bit before the call, and we got on the call and it was a little bit awkward. And she had mentioned something about, like, I think she said, like, you know, be honest with where you're at or something like that. And I like looked at Kim and he was like, kind of like, shut the fuck up, you know, like don't fucking say anything. Pretty much. Like I just said like, oh, well, you know, I remember Michelle saying like, you need to be so comfortable with her in our space that we would like pretty much have sex in front of her. And Kim's like, what the fuck? And she's just like, and she's just the coolest old lady, man. Like she's just, I fucking love her. And she's just like, yep, that's right. But I'm so glad that we did that because again, I felt like it broke this layer of ice and formed this level of trust again, which was going to be needed at the time of birth because those whole 9 months was like the marathon, I guess, before the birth, you know, of all the trials and tribulations, building our relationship up strong, working through anything that came up, to then get to the time of the birth, which we chose not to have any scans. I didn't have any medical support. Instead, I would do things like chiro, pregnancy massage, and just trying to eat as healthy as possible. And my first pregnancy was amazing. Like there was no pain, no stress. I could rest as much as I wanted to. And yeah, just really relax into it. And then, yeah, not having this guidance of a midwife and not having someone monitoring me all the time, I really just got to have my own experience. And so even when labor started, I remember being like, oh no, this isn't it. This isn't it.
I feel like a good note to make on all of that as well, before you just go into the next part, is that how important it is that you feel like, one, confident in yourself to be able to do it. Like if you don't have the belief that you can do it,
like
then,
truly,
then you're probably going to have some difficulties. Second, you need to remove everyone from your life that is going to put their fear on you. You know, all of the people that you tell and they're just like, oh, you can't do that, or what about this? Do you have this? Like,
how far's the hospital?
Yeah, what if something bad happens? You know, all of that talk needs to be removed because ultimately you're trying to create the safest, most relaxing, most like just chill and toe vibes, you know, like so you can truly focus all of your energy on this one thing, which is bringing your baby to Te Ao Marama, or this life, you know, like, and I think that, you know, when you make those decisions, the information and the support that you need will come to you when you really like make that decision and make it clear. And yeah, we had to do a lot of different things and even like not tell certain people certain things because we knew that it would trigger their fears in them, which they're then going to point at us, you know, like, which we just didn't want any of it, you know. So we just put a big fucking shield up pretty much of like, I don't want no negative bullshit from anyone else. I don't want any projected fear from anyone else. And our house now is a sacred whare tangata pretty much. It's the womb where our baby's going to be born from, you know. So,
and I think too the important part of that is like not only did I have genuine belief in myself, which doesn't mean fear never came up, obviously it did, and I worked through that as it did each time, but what I think was major key to that is that you had a deep trust, knowing belief.
Or even like in that time when she had gotten pregnant now, I was having conversations with other males that had gone through similar things, you know, or had given home births and had supported their partners through things. And one of our good friends, he was telling me that when he like helped his partner give birth, and they were all home births, he had this Maori guy actually who was helping him with like different types of like massage and things like for the woman, you know, like, or just like moral support in general, you know. And this Maori guy that was helping him was like considered like a male midwife, you know, in his own right, you know. And that was something that I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, you know, like. And because I knew that we were going this route, I knew we weren't going to have all the support from friends and family because we didn't even want them there because they were too scared in their own right. And I definitely didn't want to fuck with hospitals because I don't trust them at all unless I got a broken bone or something. They're just fucking no good to me. So I was like, well, I actually have to take some responsibility in this, and no matter what happens, you know, like even if it was to go bad, I have to take ownership of that and be like, this was our decision, this is what we chose to do. And I was willing to stand on business when it comes to that.
And I think that is such a major key, is that responsibility. And I think so many males are scared to be responsible.
Because most males are too scared to even see birth.
They're scared to be responsible
for it. Which is crazy to me.
Because obviously, like, an outcome of birth is death.
Yeah.
And you have to really sit with that and trust that, like, God forbid that happen, but if it fucking happens, that's what was fucking meant to happen.
Yep. Or you just made a whole lot of bad decisions, but that's on you as well, which
Yeah.
you got to take responsibility for.
Yeah. So really sitting with that. And we did talk about, like, well, what happens
what does happen,
if we die? Like, if I die, if the baby dies, like...
Yep, we had to have all of those hard conversations.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we had them between ourselves, because obviously other people are trying to tell us this and we're like, shut up, fucking don't want to hear it,
Yeah.
Which to most people sounded absolutely nuts, but for us, this was actually the safest option.
Yeah.
Like,
and
for
it made
us,
most sense.
this was the safest option, and I wanted my kids to come in as natural as possible, like how God had created them. Like, if you look at any mammal or, animal that's giving birth, they'll literally run away, hide, they'll find a dark, secluded place where they're safe, they know that there's no predators or no one can come and watch them. There's no fucking bright lights shining in your eyes, They go away, they do their thing, and then they come out with a baby. And that was what I was going to do, what we were going to do.
Physiologically as well. Physiologically, the female body actually closes up when it's in a state of fear. And that is from back in caveman days or whatever, when women would be birthing, they needed to be able to either be safe and birth their baby, or if there was some sort of fear coming up, it was because someone or something was coming into their birth space and they needed to probably get the fuck out of there and run, right? So if you were being disturbed, your labor would be stopped so that you could get to the next place and deem yourself safe and continue your labor. So if we think of that in today's society, and you're in a hospital, you're being disturbed, monitored, checked. A lot of women have a lot of things.
Schedule.
Yeah, there's a time schedule, and a lot of women have a lot of things happen to them that they don't feel comfortable with. So of course your body is going to close up. And I just knew for me, if I was in a hospital setting, my body is going to close up.
And I knew I was just going to get angry.
Yeah, and so for me, the safest and most logical option was to be home, because at the end of the day, I could get to the hospital if I absolutely needed to. But pretty much my mindset was like, I'm not fucking leaving this house until this baby is born, like this baby is going to be born here. And so, yeah, thank God that all happened the way that it did. And I think that it's hard for me to even explain like my birth experience, because there was this undisturbedness about it. Like, we did not time anything.
Peaceful,
I didn't time contractions. I honestly didn't even know what contractions were, because it was my first time. And so I just thought it was like an uncomfortableness. Everything was just like an uncomfortableness. And I was actually having Braxton Hicks probably for a little while, but I just thought that it was like a cramp. I didn't realize that it was Braxton Hicks. There's nobody telling me this is Braxton Hicks.
Well, it's the doctors that just put labels on everything,
And so it was just all an experience. And it's just either up or down, Like, yeah, sometimes there was discomfort.
Got to ride that wave,
but that's just what it was, And so the contractions were coming, and I remember like I started to get vocal, and I thought, oh, okay, this must be something, but one of my fears was that I would have a long labor. And so I just kept thinking I needed to prepare myself for that. And I didn't end up having a long labor, but I just kept telling myself like, oh, you still like, this is not even the start, like you've got ages to go, blah, blah, blah. And then I remember I must have had my mucus plug come out, and I told Michelle like, oh yeah, my mucus plug is out. And she probably got to our house around 9, 10, maybe 11 a.m. somewhere between there. Again, I'm not looking at time. One of my rules was I'm not looking at the time, because I'm not timing this at all. That was his job. Again, we did a lot of things where it's like, I need you to take care of all like the logical shit, make sure everything's like working as it should be, and I am just going to focus on getting through each wave that's coming and getting through each level of discomfort that I am experiencing. That was pretty much my job, and his job was to make sure everything was running smoothly, keep this space safe, keep me safe. And so, yeah, Michelle got there, and I remember when she got there and I just melted into her arms, and once she was there, it was like, boom, we're on, baby. And that, again, is this next level of safety, right? Because I felt safer now that she was there. She never told me what to do. She never monitored me. Nothing. She was just there with me. But because I knew that she had been to many births before mine, just simply having her there made me feel so much safer. And when she arrived, it was like my contractions ramped up, and that was just hectic. But all she did was make sure I was having enough water, that the water was in my birth pool was warm enough for me, and that I was eating. That was pretty much what she did. And she just sat there, sometimes with me, sometimes in my wardrobe, hiding around the corner. And yeah, she was just there holding that space. which, yeah, again, to some people might sound crazy, but it was actually perfect.
Yeah, it was perfect.
It was so perfect. And and she scooped out my poo when I pooed, because this guy was like, ooh, gross. So she scooped out my little pebble. But things like that, that's what she was there to help me with. So yeah, there was just so many waves, riding the waves, getting through each one. I was very vocal, and I felt like, again, that was a major key. I think a lot of women silence themselves when it comes to birth, and especially being in a hospital, you probably think you don't want to be too loud, you don't want to disturb the next person. But I knew, they say that your throat is connected to your vagina, and when you open your throat, when you're using your voice, you're also helping to open your vagina. So I just did not give a fuck that I was loud as fuck, and I just kept roaring, and it actually helped with the pain, right? Like, it actually helped managing the level of discomfort.
It was quite perfect too, because it was in the middle of the day, so all of the
no one was
neighbours were at
home.
work.
Yeah, no one was home.
So like the neighbourhood was dead.
Quiet. If anyone was home, they definitely would have heard. And then the pool, right? Having the pool there was amazing. Like, I think it should be illegal for women not to be able to birth in the pool. And that's the other thing. We have all these birth centres. They say you're allowed to birth in the pool, but then you go to birth in the pool, and all of a sudden, 101 reasons why you can't fucking birth in the pool and you have to get out. I just could not imagine not birthing in a pool. It is a natural pain relief, and it obviously softens everything, right? So that when you're crowning, it's not as fucking raw. Oh my God. So yeah, amazing experience. And the only thing that I did ask to be timed and monitored was how often I was peeing, but I didn't time that. I didn't take note of it. It was him and Michelle. They would kind of ask me if I'd gone toilet, or I would just say I've gone toilet, and they would kind of remember what time it was and just make sure I was going often enough. And why that is because if you're not going toilet enough, your bladder can be full and then block the passageway of your baby coming through. So that was really the only thing that we timed. But again, I didn't time it. And so, yeah, must have been about 3, my waters broke. And I remember thinking, I said to Michelle, is this the baby? Like, is the baby's head coming? And she's like, that was your waters. And I remember up until that point, I thought, like, fuck, this is tricky, but like, I'm so good, like, I can so do this. And then my waters broke, and Michelle was like, things might ramp up here. They may or they may not. They definitely did. And I remember thinking after that, like, holy fuck, how am I going to do this? Because the contractions were just so much more intense. And I didn't use like a TENS machine or anything like that. It was just the pool. I just sat in the pool the whole time. Probably like 6 hours I was in that pool. And yeah, it was so intense. And then an hour later, and I only know the time of this because we recorded some of it, and it was an hour from my waters breaking. Oh no, yeah, once my waters broke, I said to you, can you record? And it was an hour later that Rehua was born. At about 4:15, he was born. And I just remember being like, oh my God, it's taking forever. And Michelle kind of explained to me, like, you're opening for the first time. So their head, we didn't know it was a boy, their head's going to be coming and then going back, coming and then going back. And I remember thinking, oh my God, this is never going to end. Like, what the hell? And it just felt like the longest time ever, but really it was just an hour. And I remember I kept checking, like, I can't feel anything, just checking myself, seeing if I could feel a head or something. And then finally I could feel the tip of a head, and I was like, oh my God. And then in my head I'm thinking, like, okay, yeah, we're soon. Still, it wasn't that soon. And that's when she's saying, like, yeah, the head's going to come out and go back and come out and go back. She's like, you don't want it to come out all at once, because then that's going to be too much too soon. Like, your body is so perfect in how this baby comes out. It knows to do it so slowly, And so, yeah, I really just had to, like, ride that, keep going. You're, like, pushing but not pushing. Again, no one is telling me to push. I just am, like, bearing down. And I'm thinking, okay, like, I've changed how I sound now. Something is changing, something is happening now. And, obviously I'd read books about the different stages of labour, but when you're in it, it's obviously so different. And so, yeah, I'm bearing down, and I'm like, okay, surely this baby is coming soon. And then I can feel, it's this so different feeling of the baby actually coming down, like, to your vagina. And I just remember my whole life I had been told that was the most horrible experience, the baby coming, their head getting to the vagina and crowning, and that, they call it the ring of fire. And I just remember knowing that the baby was there crowning, and I remember saying to myself, like, remember this, like, be here now, because this is actually the most amazing part. And it was the most amazing part. And it wasn't this scary, painful, like, yeah, burnt a little bit, but it was actually the coolest thing ever, actually. And so, the head comes out, and then they just, like, got their head hanging out there until your next contraction, and then the body comes out, and you caught him, right? So you caught him, and so what's kind of going through your head like at that time?
I remember like first like seeing the head, and I was like, oh shit, like I think that's the head. And I remember put my hand down and like touched it, and I was like, oh shit, yeah, that's definitely a head. Like it's hard, you know, like. And then I remember like the head like coming out, and it was just like the head, and I'm thinking like first thought was like, shit, is he getting strangled? Like, like it was a bit of a like buzzy like look, but pretty quickly like the whole body come out, and I remember just thinking like, oh shit, like quickly like half jumped in, half not, like just leant over the pool and like grabbed it. But I remember Steve being like slowly, like, and then I don't know, like for me I was just like, oh, it is what it is. Like I didn't think it was anything like too crazy, you know, like I just thought like, wow, this is amazing, you know,
Yeah.
like, and all I could think was like, yes, like my baby's here. And the first thing I'm thinking is like looking for its genitals, you know, like, I'm like, is it a boy, is it a girl,
He
you
was
know, like,
scouting
and I'm
more than
like,
me.
yes, it's a boy, you know, like as soon as I seen his balls, I was like, yes, like I got my fucking boy, like. And then, yeah, I think not long after that, I pretty much just handed it to you. Like, this is all like in the matter of a few seconds, you know, like handed it to you. And at this point, you know, like he's not crying. He's
He
like,
was just looking, do you remember? He's just looking around like,
yeah, like it was not much going on, you know, like, no, I think his eyes were shut at that point, wasn't
they opened, looked around, and then he like,
he? Yeah, kind of just like shut them back off, you know, like, and yeah, he hadn't like moved or breathed or anything like that yet.
that's right.
And I remember like thinking like, fuck, is that normal? But I remember like the one birth video I did watch, like they were like saying that that's real normal, like, and sometimes they don't breathe or make a noise for a while. You just kind of like play with their umbilical cord, because yeah, they're still breathing through their umbilical cord, you know, like that's like their life force is that umbilical cord, like, so to think that your kid's going to get strangled by the umbilical cord is pretty crazy, like.
Yeah. He didn't have it around his neck, but I think he had it like around his arm
Yeah,
or
he
something.
was wrapped up a little bit,
Like a
you know,
backpack.
because I
He had
remember
it like
you,
a backpack,
yeah, I remember
yeah.
you having to like untangle him a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember just playing with his umbilical cord.
And his hands, we were like
Yeah.
rubbing his hands.
And then just talking to him, you know,
Yeah.
like, and that was something we did throughout his whole entire pregnancy, and obviously like during the birth as well, we were talking to him, you
Yeah.
know, like telling him it's safe to come, you know,
Yeah.
like,
And I kept saying like, come on,
we're here for you,
baby.
you know, like this, that, and the other, you know, like almost just cheering him on, you know,
Yeah.
like you got to think this is his first time here, you know, like, and so all of this is going to be quite shocking.
Yeah.
Most people are even thinking like, yeah, it's a baby, they don't even have they can't even think, but they're super
can,
conscious,
yeah.
they're super conscious, and they have a spirit, an all-knowing spirit, which is like their soul, and that thing's been here, you know, like, and that thing knows what's going on, and it knows that you're listening, and it's talking to you, you know, so. Yeah, so we just started playing with him, and it was actually a little while. Like I
Well,
remember, like Steve
I-
had like a nervous look on your face, like why is he not doing anything? You
Yeah.
know, like
To me,
but-
it felt like a fucking
no,
lifetime.
it was a little while, but I remember
Because
saying like,
I-
no, this is normal, like it's okay, you know.
Yeah,
like,
and you know what? Actually, so to go back on, I guess my experience of that part was, you know, he came out, we untangled his little backpack, and he's not making any noises. I seen that his eyes were like looking around, and then when he closed them, I thought, oh my god. That's when I was like, oh my god, is something wrong? And that's when I'd watched so many birthing videos, and I just watched one of this girl who just happened to be your cousin actually. And she had free birthed her boy, and when she did that, she sucked the mucus out of his nose. And like, that's such a Māori thing to do, honestly. Like, we do it all the time when kids are sick and stuff. And yeah, she sucked the mucus, and I remember saying like, should I suck his nose? Like, I don't know why he can't breathe. And Michelle was like, yeah, if that's what you want to do it. So we did it. I sucking the mucus out, and then he kind of like coughed a little bit, but still no cry. And so we're talking, we're rubbing his hands and stuff, and it felt like for ages. And I just kept kind of sucking the mucus out, because obviously in a hospital setting, they would take your baby off you, suction them with a machine,
chop the fucking umbilical cord.
and the chopping of the umbilical cord makes them scream, because it's their
lifeline.
yeah, that's how they're breathing. So of course they're going to be shocked. And when you don't have all of that intervention, and you don't have that massive
They're just
shock,
chilling. Like,
I feel
there's
like
no
he
rush, like.
honestly felt like he didn't even know he was like out in this world yet. I feel like he's
and
still,
because he's in the warm water as well, you know, so
Yeah.
he's just like got a bit more room to press around and move
yeah.
around.
So I think he honestly just didn't even know that he'd been born yet, and so we kind of had to bring him too. But he was this purpley color, you know, he wasn't blue or anything, so that was a good sign. I knew that was a good sign, but also because he was covered in vernix, I couldn't quite see if he was like purple or blue, like, but it ended up being all good. And then he finally let out a cry, and we were like, oh, amazing.
He kind of took a breath and then cried.
Yeah. And then he cried and cried for a little bit, and then that was all good. We kind of just like sat in the pool, relaxed, celebrated. Kimiora did a karakia for him and for us. And then I was like, okay, maybe I'll like stand up and
Try to get out of here.
try to get out of the pool onto
And
the
as soon
bed.
as you stood up,
The placenta, like, I think you gave it like a tiny...
No,
oh, no,
I remember
no,
you
I
just
got
stood
up and
you
went
went
to the
sit
bed.
on the bed, yeah. And then you were like, oh,
Yeah,
another like contraction.
I thought, oh my God,
yeah.
am I having another baby? And no, it was the
And then I was like, oh, what the
after pain, I
fuck?
guess.
And then this whole other thing comes out. I was
Yeah.
like, oh shit, I wasn't expecting that.
And
Like,
what an amazing feeling that is. Like, it felt so relieving getting that out, honestly. It was so good. And then, yeah, that was that. We kept his placenta attached for probably
2
like...
days though.
Yeah, 2 days. And by the end stage, it's like this hard...
Started to get dry and
rock.
hard, yeah. So I was
Rubber.
like, there ain't no nutrients getting through that thing. May as well cut it off.
Yeah, and then a few days later, it fell off of his belly button the last little bit. You ended up... You know what? I thought I was going to be way more involved in the placenta, but they actually just grossed me out. And I don't know why, but I think I just can't handle like human blood.
Wasn't worried about it. I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, he was right up in there. We got like
I
a
was
little...
honestly actually fascinated by the placenta.
As you should be.
Because as soon as I seen it, I was like,
It's
holy,
huge.
like, what the fuck is this? It's like a whole brisket, you know? Like, it was pretty big. But then, like, I remember, like, holding it up and looking at it and just, like...
The veins.
Yeah, like, the patterns almost, like,
Yeah.
in the placenta. I was like, that's fucking nuts. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, that's actually pretty cool, you know? Like,
Yeah.
and yeah.
And so...
I remember just laying down on the bed pretty much.
Yeah.
Michelle was like,
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
take care of all of this, and then you
Bless
can just
her.
rest. Like, and I was
She-
just like, sweet. So we pretty much just laid down and went to bed. Like,
Yeah, she organised food for us, and then she packed down the pool, cleaned everything up for us. We ate, and she just snuck out pretty much, left us for a few days, and then came back with more food. The great thing about Michelle is that every time she visited, she bought
Yeah,
something.
it's really nice food,
Always food. For pregnancy and postpartum, she would always bring food, but then she'd also bring little gifts, like she would have drink bottles, hot water bottles, like a
random
peri-peri
things
bottle,
that you
like
would never think of, you know? Like,
a freaking smoothie maker, which we still use to this day. So many things, you know, that she would bring with her. And that is really what you're investing in when you invest with her, is this knowledge and wisdom around what the mothers
Actually need,
yeah,
yeah.
and what is going to be useful for them. She did so many things. Like, she got the, you know, the hose fittings for the hose to fill the pool,
so you could run warm water.
from the bathroom to the pool. Like, oh my God, just so many things that you would not even think about. Or, yeah, just what a relief not to have to think about. So it was the biggest blessing ever having her at our birth. And I just will always be so grateful for her and have a special place for her in my heart. And nobody can ever tell me nothing about her because of my experience that I've had with her. I will always just, love that woman. So, yeah, at the end of that, so because I didn't look at the placenta, and I guess I'd never really spoken to Kim about it and checking if it was all there. About a week, it was about 11 days later after birth, I had these weird cramps, and I was not yet yoni steaming, but it was something that I knew I wanted to do. And so I started yoni steaming because I thought, oh, maybe I have like a bit of placenta stuck, and I'd heard that other women had yoni steamed and passed it in clots or whatever. So I started yoni steaming, and sure enough, I had this massive clot pass, which I can only assume was a bit of placenta because it was like a full piece of meat. And again, this is just another one of those things that the doctors, the medical system instills so much fear into you by making sure that your placenta is full. And, you know, if you have a piece in there, you can get this infection and die. And whilst that might be true in extreme cases, most of the time your body is so intelligent and so fucking wise, it doesn't want to die. So if there's something in your body,
It'll push it out.
it'll push it out. You just got to give it the right environment, right? So the yoni steaming, which if you don't know what that is, look it up, really helped to open and to draw out anything that didn't need to be there. And as I said, I've known multiple women who have had the same experiences postpartum, and I had that with my second as well. So yeah, that was really, really amazing. And I just think, it was the best that we just got to crawl into bed with our baby.
That was an absolute trip, you know, like your whole lives you were just, well, you know, however many years we'd been together, it was just me and her.
And now
There's just like this little baby in the middle, you know. Like,
And so many times when we were like pregnant, we'd be like, oh my God, there's going to be like a little someone in here soon. And then they were there. And, you know, it was so cool. Our dog got to be there. He got to experience the whole thing. He slept the whole time until the baby was born. And then as soon as the baby was born, he was like right at the pool. The same with the second one as well. And yeah, it was just the best. And then postpartum, you had what? How long did you have off?
2 weeks, I think.
Yeah,
Couple
but
weeks.
it was in Christmas. So it was like Christmas holidays that he was born, and then you had 2 weeks off. And then I honestly didn't leave the house for the first 3 months, I reckon.
Yeah.
I didn't do
Isn't it a
nothing.
while?
But I feel
that was on purpose.
yeah,
you
I
know?
did that intentionally. I had a lot of friends coming over to visit, which helped. And I had Michelle, obviously, which helped. And another thing that we had running, and it ended up going for like 2 weeks, was the meal train. Very, very grateful to everyone who contributed to. At this point, it was sometimes people that I didn't even know who were contributing to our meal plan. I'd never met them before, but they, you know, knew us through
Followed
either
the journey.
online or through different things that we'd done online. And yeah, these people were just bringing in so much food for us. And so the meal train was like you would get a meal and then some sort of maybe a sweet snack with it. And it was so good. 2 weeks of us not having to worry about what to cook. And he was at home for these 2 weeks, you know. So we had that time instead for him to be able to like do the washing or the cleaning and stuff and not have to worry about, oh my God, what are we going to eat this day? And even with our second son, it was like 2 weeks as well that we got meals for as well, which was just such a blessing, again, to have a toddler and not have to worry about that. But yeah, I think it was just perfect. There is really nothing that I would change or do differently.
No, neither. And I'm excited to have more as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say like to wrap this up. Yeah, I feel like both of us are definitely advocates for free birth, or at least a fucking natural birth. Like at the very least a natural birth, you know. Like, but we do understand that some people are riddled with fear. Some people are not the healthiest. So they're probably more likely to have some risks involved. But ideally, advice from me anyway is to, as a woman, like really tap into your intuition, like because that's something that you're innately heightened in. Ask yourself those hard questions, or you know, questions about how you should do this or how you should approach birth in general. And you know, like if you do have certain fears or whatnot, don't be afraid to obviously use the hospital, you know, like because it is there, and that's obviously always usually the main option for most people. If you do choose to go that route, please just like do some due diligence and inform yourself about some of the things that hospitals are going to do. You know, you're going to be on a strict time limit. Like if you don't have that baby in the certain hours or, you know, day or whatever it is to have that kid, be prepared for doctors to turn around and tell you that there's a million problems and that you're going to need to get this baby out now. But stand in your power. Make sure that your partner is fucking there to advocate for you.
Yeah, so
and
what
not
would
being
your
a little
advice be
bitch out
for,
the back.
what would your advice be for men?
I feel like men like need to be there as the po or the pillar, as a rock for their woman, and no matter what situation you're in, whether that be at hospital, home birth, fucking whatever, because the doctors are going to try to tell you that you need to do certain things. But if that isn't something that you want to do, or if it just doesn't feel right to you, you need to stand on business and speak up, because there's a lot of times where your woman is going to be in too much pain to even be wanting to think about that type of stuff, or they might drug her up and she's not even all there. So you need to be the person to stand on business and tell the doctors, no, we're not doing that, or yes, we are doing that. And second of all, don't let them take your fucking placenta.
Yeah, and I think off the back of that too, if you have fears, research them.
Yeah.
What's the likelihood of that happening?
Inform
what are your
yourself,
options if
yeah.
that does happen? You know, like,
You've got
and then
9 months to prepare yourself once you get
Exactly.
pregnant. That's a lot of time.
yeah. And I think from a male's perspective, you mentioned, you know, the woman is going to be in too much of
Yeah,
births
she's got to
going
worry
on.
about getting the baby out here, you
Yeah,
know?
I
Like, she
think-
doesn't have to worry about all of the external shit that's
Yeah.
going on.
And if I think about my birth with Rehua, with our firstborn, I was not able to talk.
Yeah.
I could only moan. I was not talking really through contractions either. Like, I just was not able to talk. And it was a little bit different with my second, but what really gave me peace was knowing that I didn't need to talk, that you and Michelle, my birth team, knew what to do at all times, and I didn't need to say a fucking thing. So I think becoming crystal clear on what that support looks like for you. Think of all the fucking scenarios that you have to say yes or no to. Figure out what your answer is, and then have your partner stand solid on that. yeah, because we had talked about what if we have to go to the hospital, what's going to happen here, there, you know, and I feel like we just know each other so well now, or you know me, I should say, in this instance so well, where, yeah, I trust that you would make the right decision no matter what, and that the decision that you would make is the one that I would want anyway. So, yeah, being really clear on those things, no matter where you are birthing.
Alrighty.
Yeah, that's the end of our birth story.
Yeah, so go and have heaps of kids because the world needs them.